Welcome back to another exciting episode of Woke Nation. Okay, we live in marvelous times, heartening, uplifting, morally courageous. Today in America, we have a small, incredibly vocal contingent of folk, as we'll kindly call them, who have taken a sanitizing sponge to our culture. And thank heavens, I say. All this free speech and democracy was starting to make me sick to my stomach. Look, we have these heroes, this these political correctness foot soldiers, sometimes called social justice warriors, who have been selected. Well, that's not true. They volunteered to make sure that we, as American citizens, do not get exposed to joy or love or any kind of spiritual truths. I sleep well at night knowing that roving bands of young, delusional, righteously angry young punks are wandering the streets looking for Tucker Carlson's wife and whoever else who might dare to advocate for free speech. As former presidential candidate and vertically challenged shrew Hillary Clinton said, "Black people all look the same." No, wait, that's not what I meant to say. She said that. She did. But it didn't matter. She carries her L card high. L is for liberal, and if you have an L card, you can abuse other races without actually being a racist. If you're in the liberal club, you can get away with anything. You can do anything. Laws are there to be enforced, not followed. That's why liberals are the most exemplary of patriots. There's nothing more patriotic than cynically forcing society to live by rules you don't even pretend to follow. Just ask Keith Ellison. He rightly wanted nothing to do with a sicko like Brett Kavanaugh in the Supreme Court. Here you have a man in Kavanaugh credibly accused by well-paid victims. Keith Ellison was rightly appalled, and he went home that night and put his girlfriend's head through the drywall. You have Alyssa Milano as well. This walking popsicle stick devotes herself to protecting other women, and I'm glad for it. Women need someone of Alyssa Milano's caliber watching over them. At night she flies from town to town on her twiggy little broom, peering in windows and watching as Keith Ellison launches his girlfriend out the kitchen window. Thank you, Alyssa Milano. We owe you a debt of gratitude. Or Linda Dunham. Yes, Linda Dunham, the comedian feminist with a face for radio and a voice for silent film, and a heart of tinfoil. But nothing stops the PC machine. These SJW warriors stand shoulder to shoulder with the heroes who stormed Normandy. Until faced with actual opposition, nothing stops them. These SJW heroes valiantly stand up to cops, jeering, mooning, spitting, and throwing rocks. They don't want cops around. They hate the legal system. All the way up to the moment when the cops start shooting tear gas at them. Then the SJW loves the legal system. Then they're in court braying like rabid mules, "Police brutality!" But now their wisdom has extended to the holidays. Now it's Christmas they don't like. Here I'm just an ignorant, white, heterosexual male. I'm so naive I don't know what could be wrong with Christmas. It's the most wonderful time of the year, right? But see, that's where I'd be wrong. Actually, Christmas is a celebration of the patriarchy, and of slavery, and of sexual perversion. Think about Santa Claus. Here you have a white, heterosexual man, once again in a position of supreme power and authority. This man, Santa, is able to watch the behavior of millions of boys and girls the world over. It's a little creepy, an old man peeping on all these kids, you gotta admit it. And to cap it off, at the dead of night, while everyone is sleeping, he slides down all these chimneys, essentially breaking and entering, and creeps around all the kids' houses while they're sleeping, as I said. Who knows what else he does to these families while they slumber? All we know is that he attempts to atone for it by leaving behind carefully wrapped toys. Santa's way of silencing his victims. No judge would find this to be a fair exchange. Frankly, I don't either. What a pervert. And what about the patriarchy? Tell me what you know about Mrs. Claus. Seriously, does anyone even know her name? At this point, she may not even know it. Was she even given one at birth? Or did her parents have such a low view of her worth that they knew, even at birth, that her value would always hang on the greatness of another? That's the patriarchy for you. This poor woman's entire life has been delegated for her. Putting on Santa's coat, combing Santa's beard, darning his socks, cooking his meals, tending the fireplace, and never leaving their little cabin stuck in the center of one of the most inhospitable chunks of land God ever created. Imagine being told to be happy that your entire life will be spent as the indentured servant to a pedophiliac peeping Tom with delusions of godhood who spends more time with his reindeer and midget slave population than he does you. And when does Mrs. Claus ever even leave the cabin? Does she ever get to ride in the sleigh and deliver presents? Heck no. That's man's work. Go tend the fire, woman, and get me some soup. And then that brings us to the elves. Oh, man. How has this not even been exposed already? You can't get more racist than this. The entire elf population are clearly Santa's slaves. There's no records of him paying them so much as a penny. If you know differently, please tell me. I'm sure the IRS is aching to hear. Not that Santa has ever filed one single W-2 or 1099 in his entire life. Yeah, and I'm supposed to love this old guy who flagrantly thumbs his nose at our tax codes while I'm paying out the wazoo. But back to these elves. This whole scenario at the North Pole screams for military intervention. They've clearly been forced into service to this twisted old man who, in their primitive, dim minds, they view as a sort of deity. Hasn't anyone ever read Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad? Can't we see the writing on the wall here? How many elves must cry out, "The horror! The horror!" How many countless elves have to be slaughtered before we acknowledge the depth of the issue here? These elves haven't had a civil rights movement. Do you think Santa allows them a radio or a TV? Please. They know less about the outside world than the people of North Korea. So where are you on this issue, Democrats? Come on, Alyssa Milano, stop tribbing with Linda Sarsour and stand up for the world's downtrodden. No elf left behind, no elf left behind. And maybe Michelle Obama can do more than just becoming, whatever that may mean. Or maybe Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the hope of all hopes, can save these slave elves. After all, she's Plato and Aristotle with boobs and an estrogen overload, all rolled into one. Maybe we can get her to introduce socialism at the North Pole. At least then the elves would have something. Maybe not freedom, but they wouldn't be living at the toy shop chained to their wooden benches anymore. Or maybe they would. There's no difference. So it's clear Christmas must be exposed. We can't let this deviant old peeping Tom and his army of slaves and his shell of a wife ruin our country any longer. Anyway. All right. So that's my little fun. So to end it all, just remember, now I'm finally going to be a little serious. Just remember, no matter what, that all the legends and the myths and the games surrounding Santa can be a lot of fun. I know it's a somewhat of a controversial topic within the certain circles in the Christian world. Some people think that Santa Claus just kind of takes away from the whole nativity and the birth of Christ. And it's just an unnecessary distraction that really takes away from the true meaning. And that's how I was raised, and I have nothing against that point of view. I think that, there's a way that you can teach your children both aspects of Christmas that, in all reality, most kids grow out of the whole Santa Claus phase long before they're 10 years old. So I don't see it as a big issue. In the beginning, you're just teaching them, that there's this old man in the sky. I was kidding about all the pedophilia stuff, obviously. But, it's just a harmless legend, a myth, something that kids, I think it's good for kids' imaginations, their sense of fantasy. All those things are important to encourage in children. in a world where um, technology has short-circuited their imagination. Um, so I personally don't see much harm in it. I think it's great, fun for kids to think that Santa comes down the chimney with the presents. You can have some presents from Santa and some from you, so he knows that his parents are also giving him gifts because that's important. So you can split it up like that, so it's not an issue. Um, but obviously, most importantly, you have to tell your children the main reason for the season, which is the birth of Christ. In the long run, eternal value and consequences, eternity is really always what is most important. And the Bible says that God has placed eternity in our hearts, so we know this on an instinctual level. Um, and the birth of Christ is all about eternity, his sacrifice, and our trusting in him so that we can be with him, saved in eternity. So these things have eternal value. Um, his sacrifice, his life, his perfect life, his death on the cross, and obviously none of that would have happened without the virgin birth, the nativity, um, and Christmas. So there is a reason for the season, and it's a beautiful one. Um, but yeah, like I was saying, there's also no harm in also um, playing along with your child and encouraging his imagination and Santa Claus and the elves, and it's just good fun. Um, but obviously, the most important thing is Christ and his birth. Um, and I think it would be a great idea for people to, before they open presents, as actually when I was growing up, we would always read from the Gospels of it was either Matthew, Mark, or Luke about the birth of Christ. I think that's a great idea for people to do just to really drive home, this is why we're here and this is what ultimately we're celebrating. Um, and the Santa and everything is just a temporary pleasure, really. Um, it's just an illusion. It's just something that's there for fun. That's all. Um, don't ascribe more meaning to it than it really is necessary. So if I don't put out another episode before the end of the new year, which I'm actually planning on doing, things have been very busy here lately um, with work, and there's some health issues that some of us have been having here in the house. So it's been really busy and hard to keep up with things. Hard to put out episodes every single week like I've been wanting to. And as I've said in previous podcasts, I've been wanting to put out more than one episode a week. And right now, that's just not even feasible because I'm the only one that writes up the notes for these episodes. I'm the only one that does any kind of research for it, and I'm the only one that records it or edits it. So, not easy, especially right now. Incredibly busy time. So I'm doing the best that I can for those of you that are listening. So, just hang in there. There'll be more episodes to come. I'm definitely going to be putting out a new one before the end of the new year, and it's going to be on the just this year in censorship, basically the list of the people that have been deplatformed and censored in 2018. Gavin McInnes, Milo Yiannopoulos, Laura Loomer, Alex Jones. The list goes on and on and on, really. And I mean, these people are dropping one by one, and there's really after Alex Jones. I mean, when Milo was deplatformed and everything, there was a little bit of some furor. Um, and then when Alex Jones, everybody dropped him. There was some controversy, and it was in the news. People talked about it, but these other people are dropping now, one by one, very quickly, and less is being said. And now there's a large contingent, of the population that is cheering it on. Gavin McInnes was just He lost his job at CRTV because of his association, I assume, with the Proud Boys, which is his club that he's a part of, which has been called a terrorist group by the, what is it, the Southern Poverty Law Center, or whatever the heck that place is. They've deemed it a terrorist group, which is absurd. They're far less violent and aggressive than Antifa will ever be, and nobody says anything about them. Um, so, I mean, there's a lot going on. And yeah, he just got knocked off every platform that exists, and nobody said anything. Milo Yiannopoulos um, started a GoFundMe because all his legal issues. He's millions of dollars in debt, and he wasn't even on that platform 24 hours before they booted him. So I mean, they're not allowing these people that have conservative ideas to exist in any way, shape, or form. You know, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, gone, not allowed. And GoFundMe, Patreon, all and yeah, all these sites that online celebrities or pundits or what have you use to allow their fans to pay money to them, to finance some of their videos and stuff like that, which fans willingly do from time to time. They're not even allowed to do that, to reach out to their fans to receive monetary help for uh, donations or anything like that. It's really shocking. Um, so I'm going to go into all that because I mean the fact that it seems like as a society we would kind of become numb to it um, after Alex Jones went away. To the point now where nobody really says much when Gavin McInnes is banned from every platform known to mankind. Um, and Laura Loomer, the only reason anyone said anything about her is because she went and chained herself to the front door of the Twitter headquarters in New York City. Had she not done that, nobody would have known or said a dang thing. So she forced people to pay attention, which I used to be critical about the method she would use to get interviews. She used to be very confrontational and kind of yell at people, yell questions at people on stages. She did that to James Comey during his book tour. She did it to Alyssa Milano. But it's undeniably effective. I mean, she rattled James Comey pretty well before she was thrown out. And she accused of Alyssa Milano of being a hypocrite because she associated with Linda Sarsour, which I mentioned earlier during my tirade, comical tirade, mind you. Yeah, that Alyssa Milano had ties with the Women's March um, with Linda Sarsour, who is a Islamic, has ties to the Muslim Brotherhood and other terrorist organizations. She's a Muslim, and she is a proponent of Sharia law, which is as anti-woman as you can possibly get. And she's trying to be a part of the Women's March and march side by side with Alyssa Milano, who is a wildly outspoken feminist. The two are not compatible. And Laura Loomer rightly pointed that out, yelling to Alyssa Milano while she was sitting on stage, why do you have an association with Linda Sarsour? And, the security guards came and threw Laura Loomer out. But she got her point across, and it was not long after that when Alyssa Milano cut ties with Linda Sarsour, and I think with the Women's March because they wouldn't cut ties with Linda Sarsour. And a number of other people did the same thing. So, and then she went and chained herself to the front door of, or handcuffed herself to the front door of Twitter. And it's messy and chaotic the way she does stuff, and it's almost embarrassing. A lot of times when I'm watching it, I'm kind of just like embarrassed for her because she's kind of like shrieking at people a little bit, and she doesn't, it's just not, like she's not charismatic, she's not together, she's kind of like out there, like I don't know. I was not a big fan of hers for a while there. Like because the questions that she asked, I mean, like I said, it is. I mean, mind you, it is effective. Like with Linda Sarsour, I'm kind of rambling now, but I mean, there were other times, like with Comey, that didn't really do anything. She just got thrown out of the book club, and she just kept yelling to him, "You're going to jail." Like, what does that accomplish? And then she had an interview where she confronted Michael Avenatti. Um, and I mean, that was pretty pointless, too. So, I mean, she has her highs and her lows. But there's no denying that when she chained herself, or handcuffed, excuse me, Laura, handcuffed herself to the front door of Twitter, there's no denying that it forced people to look at what was going on there, because she had brought along the tweet that got her banned on a poster, and tweets by like Louis Farrakhan, who says that Jews are termites, and says that he's not anti-Semite, he's anti-termite, and we need to bring in the exterminator. This is so anti-Semitic, anti-Jewish, and clearly, if there is anything in the world that is hate speech, that would qualify. And yet, Louis Farrakhan stays on Twitter, and Laura Loomer, which I don't remember everything that her tweet was about, but it was merely an informative tweet, not a declarative, not like an insult, not advocating for anything, but just an informative tweet about this lady who was just elected to Congress. I cannot, for the life of me, remember her name because it's this foreign name that I can't even pronounce anyway. But she's a Muslim, and she's a proponent of Sharia law. And Laura Loomer was just pointing this out, and that got her banned. But yet Louis Farrakhan can stay on Twitter and tweet about exterminating the quote-unquote termite Jews all as much as he wants, and nothing will be said. I mean, it's the hypocrisy on Twitter and Facebook is so rank and so obvious, it is impossible to defend, which is why I don't know how they haven't been sued into oblivion, or had the book thrown at them as publishers yet in court. Um, I mean, it's just these these conservatives get banned left and right. Yet Peter Fonda can advocate for Donald Trump's or Don Jr.'s son to be thrown in a cage with a group of pedophiles, and they rip him to shreds. He had a tweet like that. I mean, and that was not even taken down that I know of. I don't even think it was taken down. It was just left up. He was not censored. He didn't even get kicked off Twitter for a week. Not even a week. Not even 24 hours. He was just they just let it go. So, I mean, that tells you all you need to know right there. That's an impossibly huge double standard. Indefensible. But anyway, that's what the next podcast is going to be on. It's going to be before the new year. So it's going to be 2018, this year in censorship. And we're going to go into all that because that's ultimately what I wanted this podcast to be about from the very beginning, was free speech. Because that's the First Amendment, and it's the first one to go when you're really starting to get in trouble as a country. All right, so that's our episode for tonight. I will put up the next one as soon as possible. And if I don't see you till then, or talk to you till then, Merry Christmas. Remember, Jesus is the reason for the season. And have a safe travels and an enjoyable, fun time with all your families and loved ones. Until next time, God be with you.